two in blue. Are they conflicting with one another? Well, from Marienburg, I learned, because now I was able to get, using the Plattdeutsch, to get a smattering of information of where I was, where Marienburg was. And I realised that there was no way, even if I escaped, of getting anywhere. Where the hell was I going? Thousands of miles from the nearest, friendliest border. No money, no maps, nothing. So the answer was stay put. So I decided to do what I joined the army for, take education. And the first thing I did was to learn perfect German and to understand them, to learn about them. And from there I also considered, okay, what else? What else can I do to put myself in front of many of my peers if and when the war finishes? I wanted to go into the police, so I decided to take shorthand. And I was able to obtain some shorthand books. And I found it interesting, and I stayed with it. Then I thought, well, let's get the hell out of here. So I volunteered to go out to work. And as a sergeant, I was put in charge of a party. And we went out to a village called Rosenberg, which was quite a large town really. And when we travelled from Marienburg in the train, this time we went in the train, about 25 or 27 of us, but maybe 30, as a party. And the doors were locked and chained. The guards sat in the next coach. Then we landed up at this town, Rosenberg, and we got out. Again, an old town, cobblestones, and we marched and we marched and we marched through the countryside. And it was like a desert planted with a ditch on both sides and some trees on both sides. And as far as you could see were agricultural growth, sugar beet, flax, and stuff like this. And we probably walked about 10 miles, and we finished up in a very large farmyard. I was separated from the men after we were shown where we were going to billet, and I was taken up to the house to meet the chef, to meet the boss. I was paraded before him, and apparently he'd been a major in the German army, and he looked me over and spoke German rapid. I didn't understand, and eventually I was given a couple of blankets. I swear it was made out of horsehair, it was so prickly, and taken back to the village where the men had been put. It was a long hut, kind of cut in half, and poles were on one side and we were on the other, separated by boards, which we learned after time to look through the cracks. And they would look through the cracks and look at us. Then we got amongst the poles because, okay, we had to be fed, and to be fed they gave us goddamn soup, they called it. It was a watery mess with a few lumps of grease thrown in and maybe a little bit of a cut up horse, and that was it. That was soup, no salt. Yuck. Sometimes it was skimmed milk and barley, no salt, nothing, and that was the food. And we were made to work. In my party was another man out of the Irish Guards.
Just the man. unavoidable.
Out of the Irish Guards. And I knew him as Lofty because he was as tall as me, 6 feet. And thereafter, for bloody months, it was always the zwei grosser, which means the two biggest, Lofty and me. And we were put to the hardest, heaviest type of work. I got sick of this. One occasion, we were segregated from the men. And so the herdsman wants you to work. So we duly went with him into the big cattle manger or hall, immaculately clean for a dairy producing building, very clean. And what we were there for, as the herdsman told us, and what I gathered because he'd spoken to me and I was able to say, yeah, what? We were to pull out a young calf out of a young heifer who was having difficulty giving birth. And that, for the first time in my life, showed me how a child or an animal was born. So we duly pulled this animal out.
Oh.
Yeah, I was wondering if we could wait on the story until she's cleaning and moving.
Okay. Doreen, we can hear every movement that you're making.
Pardon?
We can hear you on the microphone when you move.
Oh, well, I'm going to sit down now.
Perfect. Thank
Sorry.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
We pulled the animal out and it was safely delivered. The heifer was okay, the calf was okay, and we went back to work. That was just one episode. And as a sergeant, I was in charge of the party. And I was about the only one who could really understand more German than anyone else. And I was able to converse with some of the Poles who could speak German. And so I was able to make some friends. And I found the Polish language intriguing, and I started to learn Polish too. But the only words I can remember now is nie rozumiem, which means I don't understand. But I got on well with them. Then I, being the person I am, wanted cleanliness, attentiveness, and I wanted discipline amongst the men because they were undisciplined. And one day the cook said to me, this is a man who, I don't really know whether he was a cook, but that's what he was doing. He was cooking this goddamn soup, the stuff he was given. That some of the men were complaining about me and didn't like my discipline. So at the evening meal that day, I stood up and I said, I understand some of you don't like what I'm doing or how I am doing it. Now, if you have any complaints, let me know now, or else keep your peace and shut up. I didn't get anywhere. I didn't get any answers either. But a little while later, the cook came to me and said, there's a real problem, you know. I said, can you tell me with whom? I said, I won't disclose who it is. I won't tell me who told me. Yeah. And he gave me a name. And that evening meal, after the work was done, I accosted the man at the meal. And I said, now from here on, you do as I tell you, or else, if you don't, I'll see that you do. And he said, who the hell are you? And what are you going to do about it? I said, well, I either have an apology from you of what you're doing, or else we will box. And if you beat me, I'll get the hell out of it and go back to the main camp. But if I beat you, you will do as I tell you. And the rest of the men. Do I make myself clear? And so we boxed.